Hey, I'm Chase and this is All Things Realm. Today we're diving deeper into the AGELOCER Moon Phase watch that I did a unboxing and pre-review last week. Now, all in all, my first impressions were actually extremely positive for a watch that is around $600–700. So in this video, we're gonna dive a little more in depth into the review. We're gonna go deeper into the imaging. We're gonna do more macro shots, and we're gonna do an all around, I think, more encompassing review. Now, if you find that interesting, let's just flip the camera around and dive right into it. Okay, now again, like I said, we're going to do the more in-depth full review of the AGELOCER Moon Phase. Now, one of the reasons I really like this watch, and I chose this watch, is because I really love the Christopher Ward C1 Moon Phase, like I mentioned in my unboxing and initial impressions. But $1,600 just is a lot for anybody to spend on a dress watch that you may not wear all the time. Now, I would recommend spending $1,000 to $2,000 on a sports watch, something like a dive watch, because you can wear it every single day, and those things are normally beater watches. So that would be a good investment. However, if you're just getting into watches, or you're a watch collector like myself, $1,600 for a watch that you may only wear once a week, once a month, a couple times a month, just doesn't really seem advantageous. So when I was looking through Amazon, I found this for just under $700. I got it Amazon Prime to my house. Now, it does have a lot of good details in this watch that I really didn't expect for the price point. Now, when I looked at the reviews on Amazon, someone said, just like all Chinese watches, it's 90% there and 10% flawed. Somebody said, it's garbage, and a lot of people said it was positive. However, again, no reviews on YouTube. Really surprising to me. So let's first go over the measurements of this watch, and then we'll go over the pros and cons of this watch. So first, let's start out with the case diameter, 40 millimeters. Now, this says that it is 11 millimeters thick. However, I already know it's not 11 millimeters thick because I've already measured it. It is just over 12. Not bad. It's not really bad at all because it'll easily slide underneath any wrist, any cuff. Or the lug width is 20, and the lug to lug is 46. We'll say 47. So all in all, the sizes are not bad for this watch. 20 millimeter band width, so you can find any band for this. In fact, I almost bought a new band because I'm not a big fan of the buckle or clasp or whatever on the watch strap, and we'll go over that in just a minute. So let's talk about first the functionality of the watch, and then we'll go into more details about the dial. Now, moon phases are basically worthless movements. They're there only for the artistic appeal, the aesthetic, but really they have no function. In a lunar cycle, there's 29.5 days in a standard lunar cycle, so just under a 30-day month. However, this is on a 31-day date wheel. So every single month, it's going to be a day and a half off. Not really a big deal. A lot of people are used to changing dates anyway on their automatic watches, so it's something you're really not going to notice. Also, unless you have this on a watch winder, like I said, you're not going to wear it every single day. This is a very dressy watch. Now, it is a beautiful looking watch. However, this is not an everyday wearer because, again, it's not really going to fit with every outfit. This would look good in a pair of chinos and a polo or in a suit and tie. However, I wouldn't necessarily recommend wearing this in shorts and a t-shirt, but it's your watch. You do you. But stylistically speaking, it's not really recommended. Now, right off the bat, let's talk about the case. The case, again, is 40 millimeters in diameter. It is a 316L stainless steel case, like everything else is. Now, I really like the fact that this has different types of polishing and different types of brushing on the case. It really it's different from the standard high polished dress watch that you'd see, with the upper bezel being polished, the middle case being brushed horizontally, you can see, and then the bottom part being polished as well with a high polish. Now, even on the brushed finishes, you see it there on the lug, they did try to polish the edges there, so again, it gives it more contrast. Now, one of the things that I really liked about this watch is the movement and the movement itself. It is very decorated, it's very well decorated, except when you get up close. When you get up close, you can see that, well, for a $700 watch, they did have to cut corners, and they did cut corners on, you know, I want to say the quality control. It's the same thing with the dial. Now, when you zoom in on the dial, you can see that the moon is very beautifully etched. It's very beautifully placed on the dial. It has a nice 3D finish. It has a nice sort of reflection in the light. You can see the contours of that moon. However, if you look around the indices that are supposedly platinum plated stainless steel along with the hands, you can see that there is some dust inside of the dial. Now, that's really nothing that you see unless you zoom in close, especially because the star pattern on the dial really takes your eyes away from anything else that's on the dial. You can barely even see the AGELOCER at the top at the 12 o'clock, and really it's only prevalent because there is no 12 o'clock indice, so it sort of pops out a little bit. Now, there's only 2 bits of writing on this watch, and that is the AGELOCER brand at the top and the moon phase down at the bottom. I really like the fact that it didn't clutter the watch, but they did put a lot of, you know, stars on the face. Now, one of my biggest things that I wish they would do is turn those decorations, turn those stars into loomed stars. That was one of the biggest things that I think they could change, is it would give it a really nice in the dark glow if those stars actually shined at night. And it wouldn't cost hardly anything else for them to actually use loom. Everybody who knows anything about watches knows the brand Zarek. And Zarek has their Trappist 1, and their Trappist 1 or their NASA edition does the same thing. It uses loom in the background for stars. And I think that they could have done the same thing, and I don't think it would have taken away from the beauty of the moon face itself. Now, let's go back to the movement. They say this is their own in-house caliber A4610, 27 joules with an 80-hour power reserve. Now, I have not seen if this is a true 80-hour power reserve. However, I think they did a good job for the price point, doing what they can with the decorations. Again, you can see on the oscillating weight wheel right there that, you know, is used to wind as you wear it. They did put some decoration. They have their clover emblem right there on the center. AGELOCER 27 joules, 80-hour power. However, why put it on that and then also on the movement itself? 27 joules, and then right around here, 80 hours of power reserve. I think that's just too much. They didn't need to do it. They could have easily just put AGELOCER on the oscillating wheel with their brand, and it would have just been fine. It's like they needed to do too much. And then if you look right here, one of the things that I really like on the movement is on the balance wheel bridge there, you can see that it's separate from the movement itself. So that will help when it comes to shock absorbing, because it's just sort of on its own plane. So that's good to see as well. Now, I know this movement is used in several other AGELOCER models that are sports models. So maybe they do that across the board, and maybe the movement is actually more tough than most other dress watch movements. A lot of people know they wouldn't wear dress watches in any type of sport situations, mainly because the movement is not meant to be banged around. Now, when changing the function right here, it is relatively easy to do. If you've handled any type of watch that uses a time only with a date, you know that a single pull of the crown goes to the date function, another pull of the crown goes to the time function in changing the date. So as we turn through this, so you can see a simple turn and the moon goes around. Now today technically is a full moon. It is September 2nd. So it is a full moon tonight for me. So we're going to do just before a full moon, which is right there, because the full moon is at the 12 o'clock, and we're going to pull this one more time. And then we're going to maneuver the hours so you can see how it changes over. Now, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of how this changes over because it does it pretty slowly. It doesn't have a quick change feature. You can see right there, it's 10, 11, 10, 12, and it slowly is starting to change over. And then as we near 11:45, boom, just at the 12. So it takes about 2 hours to change over. I don't think this is necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just something to consider. Honestly, at a price point of $700, it should have a quick change feature. This is a Chinese watch. It's not a Swiss watch, but even a Swiss watch that is around the same price point like a Hamilton, maybe like a Hamilton khaki big pilot that's, $100 more, that uses the day and date function, has a quick change that instantaneously snaps over. So they could do a little bit better with that. Now let's talk about the strap. They say this is an Italian leather strap. And, well, I don't necessarily believe that. I think that's a load of malarkey. And in fact, when I had to adjust this, you can see that it sits for a long period of time underneath this buckle in a certain position. And if that position doesn't fit your wrist, which it didn't me because it wasn't fitting quite nicely and it wasn't comfortable at all with the way this clasped over at the bottom, I had to move it and adjust it. And you can see that there's some wear already just from it sitting in the box for however long it was sitting in the box. So I think this is not an Italian leather with whatever else they say. I think this is probably just a genuine leather cheap strap. So my recommendation is to change the strap. Now let's see it on the wrist. Now here's the watch on my 7¼ inch wrist. It fits just fine now because I've adjusted this clasp at the bottom. Now it was sitting slightly back, so it caused it to bow out right here, and it was just really uncomfortable. It looked really weird. In fact, I should probably move it still a few millimeters up just so it fits just a little more comfortable. But all in all, once I actually adjusted it, I was really happy with it sitting on my wrist. In fact, when I first put it on my wrist, I had that gut-wrenching feeling when I did not adjust the clasp. I was like, what the F? I just spent $700 on a watch, and I'm gonna hate wearing it until I get a new strap. Well, I adjusted that finally, and it sits just fine now. Does sit a little high on the wrist. I'm not necessarily a big fan of that. I think if I'd got just a classic buckle and tang, that it would look just fine and function just fine as well. So that is going to be a complaint that I have. So let's just go over the pros and cons right here, why it's on my wrist. Biggest con is the strap. Not really a big fan of the strap. It is a 20mm strap, so you can get a strap anywhere. You can put a higher quality strap on it or a similar quality strap, but maybe just something different. I don't mind the faux alligator embossing. I think that it looks just fine. However, when it comes to cheaper watches, anybody knows that the longer you wear it, the quicker it is to tear, to tather. So you're better just to spend a little extra money and get something of quality because it's going to last you for longer, even if you're only wearing it for a period of time. If it sits in a watch box, there's still stress on the leather band. So it's still going to have some wearing effect, even if it's just sitting in a case somewhere. So keep that in mind. Now, another thing, the quality control when it comes to the dust in this watch. Not a big fan of it. I think they could have done better. I think they could have cased it in a cleaner environment. I don't know if I just got a one-off. That, again, is really not a big deal for me. It's not a deal breaker because I'm not sitting there with a magnifying loupe and I'm not really going over all the details of the watch itself. However, it's just something to consider when purchasing the watch. Yours may be better, it may be worse. You sort of are taking a chance when it comes to Chinese watches. I don't know how else to say it. I can't say it better. Some Chinese watches, the Seagull 1963, a lot of people love that watch. But with anything comes quality control issues. Even when it comes to Swiss watches and German watches that are on the lower price point, there also is still quality control issue. An example is Seiko, Japanese Seiko. People love Seiko. Seiko has a lot of quality control issues. However, it's not a deal breaker for anybody. People still love Seiko. I feel the same way about this watch. I think they also could have used lume in the background of the dial. I think those stars could have been loomed, and I think it would have just brought it up just to a higher level. I think it would have just been cooler. I think it would have been awesome to have a bright sky to stare at on your wrist. Now, what are some of the pros? I think that this watch is a beautiful looking watch. I love the fact that that moon is done extremely well. They really put a lot of detail in that moon phase. I think the dial is done extremely well. I think that the overall appearance of the watch is very nice. I like the fact that they have multiple different types of polishing and brushing on the watch, so it has some contrast to it, so it's not just a fingerprint magnet like anything else. Now, they say this has a sapphire crystal. I do not have a sapphire or diamond tester, so there's no way for me to know, but I'm just going to take them at their word. So it does have a sapphire crystal, has their own in-house movement. However, I'm not really sure if it is truly their in-house movement or if they just rebranded another type of Chinese movement. It says it has 80 hours of power reserve. That's nice. In fact, Rolex just updated their movement in their Submariner, so it has 70 hours of power reserve. So all in all, I think 80 hours for this watch, if it does have 80 hours, is amazing. I think that's great. I think that's a really good job that they did. Now, all in all, I honestly think this watch is an extremely good watch, and I think that the value is absolutely there. Again, like I said in the last video, I think that it really punches higher than its actual price point. And in fact, I would love to look at more AGELOCER watches. In fact, some people left comments down below saying there are other companies from China that offer similar moon phases and maybe better quality. Maybe I'll look into those too. Anyway, if you like videos like this, hit that subscribe button down below, leave a comment of the content you guys would like to see on this channel. I have a dive video being released on Saturday. Today is Thursday, on Saturday. So if you guys are interested, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.